Golden days in the sunshine of a happy youth, golden days full of innocence and full of truth. In our hearts we remember them all else above. Golden days, days of youth and love. How we laughed with a gaiety that had no sting, looking back through memory's haze. We will know life has nothing sweeter than its springtime. Golden days when we're young, golden days.
It has been said that in the elder days of art, builders wrought with greatest care, moving backward to the great sun source of life. The consciousness of man becomes imbued with the consciousness of the Creator. Out of the depth of immortal love and knowing, there has flowed forth the divine plan. First, this plan as a mist of radiant fire substance, dazzling, bright in the mind of God, radiated forth the fiat of the holy will, and then the builders wrought with greatest care to frame the worlds by the law of eternity and truth. O beloved men and women of this age, the power of divine love is so underestimated by mankind. The love of which I speak is not an empty love, full of self and empty of compassion. The love of which I speak is the love that sustains the universe from the time the first photon of light shone forth into the dawn of reality. The present hour is but a milestone on the way toward the immortal and shining purpose of life. As an arrow sent forth from the bow of the mighty archer, so the infinite mark of spiritual achievement plows through the great cosmic densities until men and women are crowned with the beauty of godliness, and upon them is bestowed their divine inheritance in the kingdom of God. Through the thorns of life, and by reason of human vanity, all the beauty and holiness, the rapture of life has been removed from life, and human beings suffer from the disease of boredom. They do not recognize all the wonder that surrounds them, like the prophet of old spoke unto the fearful man, saying, Behold, may thy eyes be opened, And the eyes of the fearful one were opened, and he observed that the angels of the Lord surrounding the ancient city were greater by far than the hosts of the enemy. O beloved ones, as I speak to you tonight, the beloved goddess Meru stands also before me, and we are charging our joint flame of illumination into the atmosphere of this planet, in order that the planet may be blessed by the illumination flame from our wondrous temple here at Lake Titicaca, an arc of light bridging across the gap surrounding your fair city and our retreat, carries the beauty of the rainbow substance of our illumination flame, for we love it so much that we claim it for you, is now radiated into this place, the city of light, hallowed now by our flame, even as it has been for some time hallowed by the flame of beloved Paolo Veronese, Paul the Venetian, who some time ago anchored the mighty flame of his retreat within the blessed Washington Monument here in this fair city, which symbol, silent sentinel of truth, stands to point mankind to the way of spiritual achievement, back to the great grand design of the architect of universal loveliness. Beloved ones, the flame that is before us pulsates and rises. The beat of your hearts ought to rise with it, and shall. For what I see here is not an ordinary flame. It is a flame from the heart of God within the great central sun. It is charged with the mighty love rays and radiance of beloved Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, as you have called them, of all the creative power that has poured forth from eternity into the mighty stream of time in this system of worlds, and to the glory of the divine and celestial purpose. As your hearts beat more in rhythm with the flame of illumination, you will comprehend more. The mind of man requires the adoration of divine attention in order to perceive mirrored in the creation all the grandeur which is there. Mankind, through the factors governing perception, sometimes grow so accustomed to the seeming sameness of life that they fail to recognize the sustaining power thereof, and they require a refreshing and quickening charge of the illumination flame from the hand of God. This I am releasing not only to you who are here present, but unto this planetary body, that all mankind may feel somewhat, according to the degree of their comprehension and possibilities of comprehension in their present state, a momentum of this divine illumination's flame. O love that will not let go of thy vast creation, how wondrous is the touch of thy blessed hands of light. Assuaging human grief, thou comest forth radiant with all the heavenly hosts. The hierarchs of light stand before thee in adoration. They turn from thy presence, holding in their hands sacred coals from thy altars. They breathe upon them by the power of holiness, and the flame and ray goes forth from them. It encompasses the universe itself, and there is released into breathing reality the comprehension of the purposes of heaven. O illumination's flame, rise now in the hearts of these thy children. Let them in thought be able to journey with me as I take them gently by the hand of consciousness and call to their attention some of the ancient mysteries. Beloved ones, as you contemplate the ancient landmarks of civilizations long past, dead and gone, recall before you the mighty pyramid at Luxor. Recall also the mighty Mayan structures of light, temples and halls of Montezuma. Recall also the mysteries of the Yucatan. Recall also all of the ancient symbols and fables reported by mankind concerning Atlantis and Lemuria. Recall also the natural and scientific factors governing the age of the earth, which refute the orthodox conceptions of the age of the earth and prove to mankind without question by scientific accuracy that the earth is very old and that civilizations here, very ancient and wondrous, existed. They existed, beloved ones, upon our precious continent, South America. Your cities are wondrous to behold. They are today, by the power of light and the light of power, illumined to a great extent, and you bask in almost limitless light at the touch of a hand or the push of a button. Wonders, fairyland wonders of reality, burst before your pleased eyes. Some of you recognize daily gratitude toward your own divine self for these many blessings. Others, understandably, accept all these blessings as though they were natural, and you do not even realize or recognize the wonders which are revealed before you by contrast to the near past history of the world. Beloved one, as I am speaking to you now of the ancient landmarks and calling to your attention the age of the earth, I have in mind directing into your consciousness that many hidden civilizations did exist upon our continent, South America. The ancient religions which of old flourished had an entirely different accent than the religions now present upon earth. The technique and the training which was given at that time was very similar to the technique and temple training given on Atlantis and Lemuria. The Egyptian culture, in its very early time, mirrored much of the culture of the temple priests of South America. And in days to come, when the seventh root race is ushered in to the fullest extent upon the continent of South America, the Brotherhood shall once again establish the wonderful civilization of old. As the new Atla come again flourishes in America, in your country and this domain, so the wonders of a new Mayan civilization, a new Aztec civilization, shall arise in South America based on the spiritual culture of ageless and infinite wisdom. Once again, the impetus of divine love shall call the people of my continent back to the beauty, the compassion, the culture that once found a place of grace within their heart. They are a wonderful people. Through disobedience to the great law, many of these people fell from the grace which they once knew. And as the shadows enclosed round about this fallen civilization, the flame of illumination flickered and seemed to die within their heart, and they became somewhat crude in their acts, and the civilization passed through a change, descending rather than ascending the spiral of life. As the rounds appear before the consciousness of men, and the Creator's clock moves, the cycles come again, and so the flame shall rise, and from the rubble and remnants of the old cultures, the beauty and wonders of an ascended master civilization shall arise in South America, and the drum beats of divinity shall be heard there. The ascension temples that shall be raised there once again shall show man the stair steps of achievement that are required by the great law in order for mankind to ascend into their godhood. Some of you are familiar with the story of Zarathustra. You recognize that he, by his worship of Ahura Mazda, ascended into the flame of divine consciousness. Many of you are familiar with Enoch, known as the seventh from Adam, who was not, for God took him. You recognize the possibilities that through divine love, a soul in human form may approximate God, the great light, to such a degree that there is no longer a difference between the divinity of the universe and the individual manifestation, and then it is as though that blessed one did not exist in the world of form. The ascension temples that shall be raised there once again shall show man the stair steps of achievement that are required by the great law in order for mankind to ascend into their godhood. Some of you are familiar with the story of Zarathustra. You recognize that he, by his worship of Ahura Mazda, ascended into the flame of divine consciousness. Many of you are familiar with Enoch, known as the seventh from Adam, who was not, for God took him. You recognize the possibilities that through divine love, a soul in human form may approximate God, the great light, to such a degree that there is no longer a difference between the divinity of the universe and the individual manifestation, and then it is as though that blessed one did not exist in the world of form, for the triangle of beings becomes congruent, and in this similarity there is the magnification of the power of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit in that individual manifestation, which raises him into his ascension in the light, and he becomes a part of the invisible world insofar as you are concerned, but a part of the spiritual octaves and the spiritual consciousness of the universe. Beloved ones, you who are so accustomed to form, you who are so accustomed to the idea of your body temples and home, recognize that it is not necessary for you to be confined to a body temple. You could as well and comfortably dwell in a body 10,000 times as large as the one you now occupy, or as comfortably dwell in one microscopic in size. All conditions are relative, and inasmuch as the universe itself is not relative whatsoever, but is only an extension of divinity from a center to a periphery of infinite proportions, man must understand that there is a permeation and penetration of the great cosmic light everywhere, from that which is the creator into that which is the created, and then there remains that spatial area in which nothing has yet been created. You have within your own body spaces which are so-called vacant spaces. Your body is not a solid, and the universe is not a solid. It is filled with suns, systems, and galaxies. These are all radiating points of the great cosmic light from out the great spiritual sun, the Son of Suns, behind all suns. Earlier during this class, you were told of the wonderful achievement of beloved Saint Germain. You were told how that whenever a divine idea rises and pulsates in the mind of God, that simultaneously it rises and pulsates in the consciousness of Saint Germain, who has attuned himself to such a degree with the power of light in the mind of God within the great central sun, that the forces of freedom flowing between the life stream of Saint Germain and the life stream of beloved Alpha and Omega are as one. Beloved ones, perhaps it was not told you, it matters not, but I declare to you now that you also may, without blasphemy, enter into the mind of God and pulsate with the divine light in the great central sun. It is never the intention of the All-Father to deny any of his gifts to any of his children. It is unfortunately their chosen will to deny to themselves in ignorance the blessed gifts which God would bestow with divine wisdom and illumination. The religions of the world compassionately endow man with precepts of truth. They are footsteps of truth. They are truth in part, for men know in part and they see in part, but they see as through a glass darkly. The all-knowing mind of God is the only possible way which a man can come into the knowledge of universal law and know that that law is complete. Unless man be imbued with the full consciousness of God, he knows in part. And therefore, when you ascend into the heart of God, it is as the words of Christ were spoken: I ascend unto my God and to your God, to my Father and to your Father. Also the words were spoken, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there may ye be also. In the consciousness of I am, there is the name of God revealed. In the consciousness of I am, the universal solvent that removes all stain from human consciousness flashes forth. In the power of I am, the being of God, man can have the resurrection and the life. I am the resurrection. I am the life. is a divine concept. It was not framed by human consciousness, but it came forth by the power of the light from out the great central sun, for it is the name of being, which name was indeed, I repeat, as other masters have said over and over again, the words that God spoke from out the burning bush, I am that I am, reveal for all time to mankind that in the heart of the I am presence of every individual there is the completeness of life revealed, and so as the tiniest atom possesses the wonderful central sun, the nucleus of life within the center of its own structure, so each individual at his beating heart, manifest in the threefold flame of life, has the pulsating radiance of God's love, wisdom, and power manifesting for now and all eternity. At this moment, I ask you to exercise your own divine intelligence and probe what is known as the Akashic records. For tonight it is my good pleasure to enable some of you who are more advanced than others to attain some knowledge of the secret civilizations of South America. I have asked the goddess Meru to place the tips of her fingers against the tips of my fingers, that we may focalize our twin flames in outbreathing a special current of divine illumination. This flame of illumination, which is now flashing forth from our fingertips, beloved ones, is going to radiate through this room and contact the aura and life force of many of you who are seated here. I refer to those who are advanced enough to be able to receive a special bit of attention from our octave that will enable you to enter into the divine Akashic records of ancient civilizations and perceive for yourself some of the wondrous treasures which are revealed in those historical records. Some of you may be able tonight, while seated here, to see the scroll unroll and see flashes of scenes from those ancient civilizations revealed to your waking consciousness. To those of you who are not yet able to discern the full flash of cosmic light and interpret it in the brief instant which it shall flash forth, I promise you that if you will call to your own mighty I Am presence and to me, and will faithfully accept the possibility that this can occur, that many of you, not all of you, will be able, during your hours of sleep, to gradually unfold either in a state of dream or vision, or upon awakening, some memory of that which I have flashed forth this night. The god and goddess Meru have spoken to you, and we now shall perform this service of divine love. Blessed ones, this long pause was in order to enable you to have time to perceive the flash of light and to interpret the radiation which we poured forth. I desire now to release to all of you a charge of divine love from our temple. I have asked, therefore, that a special act may be performed this night in honor of beloved El Moria, in honor of beloved Saint Germain, in honor of the beloved Goddess of Liberty. And therefore, beloved Himalaya has agreed to radiate a focus of the masculine ray into this place at the same time that we radiate the feminine ray from our retreat. This merger shall be joined by an arc of light sent forth from the royal Teton ranges and the temple of the great white Brotherhood there, under beloved Lanto, shall radiate forth a mighty arc of light, and thus 3 wondrous pillars of light shall manifest in this force field in order to bestow upon this nation and upon the world the blessings of the great white Brotherhood through you, precious life streams assembled here. O Cassiopeia, thou divine Elohim, breathe thy flame into this flame of divine illumination and cause it to rise and rise and rise into the atmosphere. May the great sun-gold radiance of the sacred fire pulsate forth from the great central sun, its mighty tangible light rays, to flood forth through this flame of divine illumination, the flame of Christ illumination, and project it to those beloved ones in Washington who are seated there in anticipation of thy glory and thy radiance. It is done. O beloved Himalaya, from thy great blue lotus temple in the Himalayan ranges, project thy mighty blue ray of divine love and power into this place in Washington, and join the mighty towering flame of illumination. O beloved Lanto, from the Brotherhood at the Royal Teton, by the power of the great eye of light, flash forth thy ray now, and join our rays here in the city of Washington. And now, beloved ones, that our rays are here, we see no reason why we should not be here in spiritual form, and therefore the God and Goddess Meru are now manifestly radiating into this place. Beloved, Himalaya himself is now manifesting in this place. Beloved Lanto is now manifesting his radiation. Now, beloved ones, that this has been accomplished as a blessing to your community and to your blessed selves, I desire to admonish you to take this blessing into your heart as from the hand of your own beloved divine presence. Hold the illumination, the radiation, the courage, the devotion, the love, and the understanding we have given unto you within the chalice of your being, as wise virgins would hold the cherished oil within their lamps. Recognize that no mortal consciousness has the power to rob you of that blessing which is a reality to your own being. I am the open door, which no man can shut. Your own mighty I Am presence is the open door to every blessing that has ever been bestowed upon mankind, to every blessing that mankind shall ever know. All blessings to life, all manifestations of life come forth from your own I Am presence, individualized for you, and this presence you are outpicturing in part. But when you see the face of your own God presence, you shall outpicture the fullness of that presence. Bear in mind, beloved ones, the words, the pure in heart shall see God. And then you will be holding the precept of greatest wisdom. As you are pure in your own hearts, you shall see God there. For God requires a place prepared for Him, consecrated to Him, and established by the free will of man. This is a cosmic law of gentle proportions, which mankind would do well to make room for in the inn of their being, that they may not be as the innkeeper of old, prone to turn away the beloved Holy Mother with child. Beloved ones, the Mother of the world, the divine universal Mother concept, desires to bring many sons to the fullness of victory. The Mother stands in America today, and the earth would destroy, in a way, the Mother. I am not referring to the earth as an entity, but to the mass consciousness of the earth, which would destroy the Mother concept, the concept of God through the feminine ray, bringing into manifestation the man-child that shall rule the earth of the individualized self with a rod of iron, which in this case is essential in order that mankind shall obtain their victory over the recalcitrant and bitter outer self which has for too long held dominion over the individual's consciousness. Beloved ones, in one sense, you are at war. You are at war with your own self, for the outer self of mankind has many desires of its own, These desires are not the will of your immaculate God presence, but because of the fact that God crowns you with the power of free will, you have been enabled, as all men have, to walk as you shall choose, and sometimes to walk as you have not chosen, by reason of past momentums which you have created in past embodiments. Momentums of fear created in one embodiment carry over into another embodiment, and so an individual must reap that which they have sowed. Beloved ones, you must be perceptive then to understand that all divine acts which men perform always bear the blessings of spiritual fruit, and never, never in all eternity will bring a bane to your doorstep, but will always bring the wonderful blessing of spirituality, of life, and of truth. As I speak to you now, I recognize the various thoughts flickering across your consciousness. Some of you thoroughly understand most of what I am saying. Some of you understand a great deal of what I am saying. Some of you understand but little of it, and others may be, and I know, are puzzled by what I am saying. But, beloved ones, if you will recognize that God is one, and that although you may not have the fullness of divine understanding, you can be given the fullness of divine understanding on the instant, by the spark of illumination within your own heart, you may open that door and permit the Christ-discriminating intelligence of the universe to come into the being of yourself within your own heart, and there in that sacred temple commune with that divine discriminating intelligence and have the answer to your questions, and you will know for yourselves that God, who is everywhere present, is present here now, is present in this temple, consecrated as a temple by your love and your devotion and the radiance of your own individual auras poured forth in devotion to the mighty I Am presence within the great central sun. Oh, what a measure of wonder this is! What a blessing it is! What a treasure it is to see even a few hearts devoted to God to the extent that they will pay heed and allegiance to our words and our radiation, that they will open their consciousness to absorb it and feel at home with it. This is a tremendous blessing. For many years it was impossible for us to reach human consciousness, and we did continue to pour out the illumination of our flame to the planet Earth. There were a few in every age which responded to the vibratory action of divine love as it flowed forth from our temple. I recall upon one occasion during the French Revolution, beloved Himalaya and myself poured forth such a torrent of divine love that the entire earth had a very early spring. And it was a strange occurrence, beloved ones. I would like to call to your attention that the wonders of divine love, which can be poured out by cosmic beings, is so marvelous that mankind often, when they see these cosmic miracles performed before their very eyes, do not recognize it as a miracle at all, but as natural law. Well, that is correct, beloved ones. That is exactly what it is, natural law. But it is a miracle in the sense that it is very wonderful. And because it is very wonderful, you ought to rejoice in each such occurrence and extend your gratitude to your own divine self, for in extending this gratitude as a great wave of love pours forth from your heart and ascends to the throne of God, there is always a return current. It is like the lightning, beloved ones, which rises up to the cloud with the negative charge, and the positive charge flashes forth. So mankind receives the great divine blessing. You can never bestow upon God or an ascended master a prayer of gratitude or a word of thanksgiving, but what there is a release of energy from that one's heart returning to you some blessing in return. This is the quality of an ascended master, and it is the quality of every student of the ascended masters who is astute enough to recognize the great law and to realize that in recognition of the great law they are bowing to the God presence within the heart of all mankind. Some men today remain stiff-necked in pride, and they insist upon holding their consciousness aloof from their fellow men, fearing some degree of contamination. Well, beloved ones, you will not be contaminated by anyone if you will hold your own God guard around you and recognize that the power of Christ's discrimination is sufficient to this day and every day to hold you inviolate, protected by the great light itself, and nothing can harm you wherever you are if you will create around you a mighty ring pass not, a ring of sacred fire called forth from God. Saturn, the beloved planet Saturn, in its great rings around it, has created some degree of protection so that it does not absorb the imperfection which radiates from this planet out into space. Beloved ones, I call to your attention that mankind ought to recognize how that opportunity is dawning daily for them, and they themselves must be perceptive enough to take advantage of it. Individuals must choose between being vegetables and being spiritual candidates for initiation. Beloved ones, you can acquire riches and honor. You can acquire wisdom as Solomon did of old. But unless you do the necessary acts that prepare you for your ascension, you will not be fulfilling the very wisdom that was revealed unto Solomon. For the purposes of life must be fulfilled in each individual. Beloved ones, success can only be measured upon the great cosmic scale. The grandeur of life is measured by your spiritual attainments. Holy men, having walked this planet's sands, have left their imprint for all time. To this hour you remember Gandhi in his gentle tranquility, and how he moved the entire continent of India from despotism toward freedom. It is true today that much remains to be brought to the Indian people, and the battle is never won because of one act, but nevertheless great grace has come to that continent because of the service of that great being. Beloved ones, the services of many who have graced this planet could be recited before you. You must recognize the patriotism of that great and beloved man, George Washington, who during the early days of the American Revolution gave so much of his time and his attention to his fellow men and spent so much of his hours alone on his knees before God. You must recognize the deliverance that came through the hands of Simon Bolivar. You must also recognize the greatness that is manifested throughout the entire world through the services of great and dedicated men. I have referred to Zarathustra. I have referred to many others, but I call now your attention even to Mohammed. And I call your attention to Abraham. I call your attention to Isaac. I call your attention to Jacob. And I tell you that this planet has been blessed with many noble souls that have led mankind toward the spiritual unfoldment of their own heart's plan. Beloved ones, how is it possible, with the descent of all these divine beings and the fact that so many prophets and teachers have arisen to mankind, that they remain yet in a state of detention? Ask yourself this question, beloved ones, in the holy name of illumination. It is because they do not retain the vision which these holy men have been given. The pure in heart shall see God, and the building of God's temple of divine illumination requires first of all spiritual vision, for without vision the people shall perish, and with vision the people shall wax illustrious. The mighty sun-gold flame of illumination pulsating upon our altars, pulsating upon your heart's altars, pulsating upon the earth itself, shall bring forth the flower of the earth's manhood into a state of spiritual regeneration, and shall make of them kings and priests unto God. This shall be done in the golden age that is to come, and the very portals of that wonder are at hand. Those that are perceptive will realize, however, that there is always the danger and peril that at the very moment when the golden age is to be ushered in, mankind shall tip the scales of balance and throw themselves into a state of decline, whereby all that has been gained by their civilization, their epoch, their era, shall be lost, and they shall begin again from the rubble that remains. At the present hour, a great peril arises in the city of Peking in China, for plots are even now in preparation for the destruction of this very continent. I tell you, beloved people of America, I have received word from Kuan Yin that I shall tell you tonight that there is a plot being hatched in China which actually imperils the destiny of the entire world. It is one of the most frightening plots that has ever been hatched since the very dawn of creation, and I hope that the students of this activity will recognize in the name of illumination's flame that they shall call for the deliverance of mankind from this peril and from this plot. Beloved ones, my word shall bear fruit, and it shall come to pass that mankind shall see this peril rising as a cloud of shadow from out the east. But all that danger which like a plague of locusts threatens the world may be stopped if the people of America and the democratic countries shall arise to a sense of divine unity and shall recognize that in unity there is strength. If they shall take their stand against the definitely destructive radiation of communism as it imperils the world order, it shall come to pass that much of this shall be averted. There shall be some struggle, for according to the karmic law and that which is presently revealed to us by the great flame of illumination, it is impossible that some suffering shall not come. But we are determined to stand with the students in the holding off of all of this horde that would press upon America, and seeing that this glorious civilization, rather than going down into decay and destruction, shall maintain its guard upon its borders and upon its world order, and shall establish temples for the instruction of the youth of the world in the great spiritual laws that shall make men noble men rather than brigands. Ladies and gentlemen, in the name of all past history, in the name of all future glory, in the name of hope, hope of divine illumination for the earth, I plead with you in the name of brotherhood to recognize the opportunities of the present moment, opportunities that do not call you, beloved ones, to do more than you are able, but that call you to recognize the majority of one, that call you to recognize that the flame of illumination is a flame with a purpose, and that that purpose is for men and women of vision who will recognize that the gods are not gods because they sat idly by, but the gods are gods because they loved. The goddess Meru, my twin flame, has loved greatly, and she desires now to share her love with you, and so she requests that as you stand here before her, your pianist shall play a melody during which she wishes to radiate from the great rose of flame which is blazing before me, the living flame rose upon our altar, which is pink in color, the beauty of God's own love and holiness as it is interpreted through the purity of her spiritual vision. Remain standing. Do not place your hands above your shoulders now, but hold them about at shoulder level with the palms upward toward the sun. Remain quiet and feel her pulsations and the great flame of her love. My beloved consort would address you. O gentle people, in the holy name of God, the mighty I Am Presence, I have rejoiced with your hearts this night. I have rejoiced with the God Meru in sharing with you our divine ideas, our longings and aspirations to see the divine plan fulfilled among mankind by magnifying his purposes into tangible reality. Men and women have not understood the Godhead. They have not recognized that they themselves are vested with such a great responsibility that the future of the world and universe can truly be said to repose in their hands. It is our desire then this night to magnify in the hearts of mankind a sense of the spiritual responsibility which is held for them within the heart of their own holy Christ self, that they may be able to draw forth enough of the divine plan to set an example before others, and that by and by, through the power of contagion, men may at last learn from one another the arts of peace, even as they have in past ages learned the arts of war. I know that most of you are familiar with the scriptures which have declared that the lion should lie down with the lamb, and you have in your hearts longed to see the world at peace. In the lifespan of many of you, wars have taken a frightening toll, and I am certain that you are able to see how that the spiritual brotherhood, who are attached to the evolutions of earth in a matter of cosmic service, can continue to pour forth our devotion, for we are not possessed of the limitations of your octave. I shall close my address now in order to permit my beloved consort to briefly conclude his, but I have rejoiced with him in providing some measure of happiness and comfort to your hearts by that divine love which has proved for all time to all of us who have been vouchsafed a view of his plan and purpose that life is truly benign. I thank you. Thank you, beloved goddess Meru. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your attention. I shall not prolong this any longer. I have spoken. I have called forth the flames. I have blessed. I have performed a service. That service shall not cease now, for I shall remain within this room for a period of 28 hours, pouring forth to the world a flame of divine illumination. I shall be present then in order to bless you for many hours to come. I ask that you recognize your own divine presence, and in paying allegiance to it, bear in mind that the myriad forms of life in manifestation around you, with all of the molding factors which have made them different, possesses within the heart of each life stream the power to change the unwanted condition until the purity and perfection of the Father's plan can manifest for every life stream. In the holy name of freedom and illumination, I thank you and bid you good night. Please be seated. Gentle and lovely souls, I greet you tonight in the holy name of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. I am come tonight to bring to you the fresh winds and currents of the Zuyder Zee. For I begin with a tale of the land of the dykes. There lived by the sea a gentle soul who was a miller of flour and grain. He and his wife served together. They ground the meal for a community of neighbors, and it came to pass that in all the land there were no communities where so much happiness reigned as there. And the people of the entire land wondered and marveled, for they recognized that something strange must have occurred that made the people of this community so distinctly wise and happy. And although the people were born, matured, and passed from the screen of life, they never, in all of their living, were able, even to the present hour, to serve, to understand the answer to this question. And I tonight shall draw aside the curtain, and I tonight shall tell you the secret that made this community so happy and prosperous, so gay and so joyous. It was the miller and his wife and the love which they themselves radiated into the flour. This love was carried home on the backs of those who patronized their place of business, and was baked into the bread which they partook of. And at every meal the generative and regenerative power of love from the miller and his wife was radiated around the table as the food which the neighbors ate was imbued with divine love. It came to pass that this love entered into their physical being, and like radioactive power, which is now understood by mankind to a greater measure than in the past, the power of this radiant love from the miller and his wife was manifest throughout the community, and they did not know the cause of this happiness, and none of the people were ever able to discover it. For mankind are sometimes, although closely approximate to one another, unable to ferret out the most simple secrets. And so the mysteries of divine love continue to defy probing by human consciousness. But we of the radiant ascended Master's octave choose occasional gems to share with you. Now the instruction which I would bring tonight to you concerns physical properties and their retentive power, whereby they retain the radiation of those who handle them. The food which you eat, beloved ones, when prepared by hands charged with divine love, enters into your physical being and creates a much greater degree of spiritual happiness than mankind realize at first. And those who are wise and recognize this fact will, if they must partake of food of unknown quantity, be certain that they have removed by the violet transmuting flame, the flame of mercy and forgiveness, those unwanted qualities of radiation and human creation, which do no good unto the individual who partakes thereof, and can do harm to an unprotected or unwary individual. It is my wish tonight to release that ascended master instruction into your world, which will make your physical body temple a more hallowed place. The ancient laws which Moses gave to the people of Israel were somewhat strange to those outside the camp, the Gentile nations, and yet many of them were laws that provided that people with a priceless heritage of purity. I would call your attention then as spiritual children of God, for you are the chosen race who embrace God's holy name and follow the sacred fire element. I would call your attention to various protective measures whereby you can make your physical body temple a more fitting place for the Holy Spirit to abide. Now I do not wish to cause fanaticism or strange ideas to sprout among the students of this activity or any activity, and I do not wish what we may term a sort of witch hunt to take place, whereby you blessed chelas will go out and question every morsel of grain which you eat of. But I would like to call to your attention that you, beloved mothers and beloved sisters of light, and even the gentlemen who prepare food for others to eat, can utilize this knowledge for the enrichment of mankind by putting the divine and radiant qualities of divine love into each tender morsel which you prepare with the love of your heart. Today, in the marketplaces of the world, mankind are making purchases day after day of those goods which are known as durable goods, hard goods, and soft goods. Beloved ones, do you recognize within your being that if you purchase a garment, an article of clothing, that many hands have handled this garment before you do, and yet you place it upon your person and take into your world and aura in the closest degree of proximity the aura, the radiation, and the qualities of another life stream of whom you may know nothing. In days of old, when the world was in a different state and the labor markets were crowded with child labor and suffering was very rampant throughout the world in the cotton mills of England, a situation existed where the pitiful vibratory actions of the tiny children in all their suffering entered into the garments which were worn in many cases by the gentry as well as others of the English people. The vibrations in so-called new garments should be analyzed by mankind from the standpoint of purification. When you receive a new garment which you are about to wear for the first time, some of you perceptively wash it, but then, beloved ones, some of the garments which you purchase cannot be washed. But you can utilize the great cosmic law by calling forth the sacred fire and blazing the sacred fire from both of your hands directly into the garment, and call to the ascended Master's octave and to your own mighty I Am presence to blaze its purifying power through the substance which you hold in your hand before you wear it, and thus transmute that which otherwise could become grief to you, and create a condition whereby you would be taking on some of the vibratory action of those individuals who worked upon the cloth during its weaving and the sewing of the garment. I hope that the students recognize what I am attempting to do tonight in this instruction. I am attempting to show you how that you may avoid subtle contact with those spiritually contagious objects which in themselves are far more harmful than mankind realize. Of course, those of you who perceptively follow the ascended masters with all of your heart's dedication are able to avoid this by calling forth so much violet flame around you that you almost automatically transmute these vibratory actions. But it is still a wise action of the perceptive Chela that will blaze forth this power with his giving of thanks as he receives each new article into his hands, his home, or even his heart. When the article comes, give thanks first to God the giver. Then give thanks unto the one who directly gave it to you. Then, beloved ones, call for the transmutation of all that which may be deleterious within its content. Then, beloved ones, call for a blessing to be conveyed back to the great source. If the garment be of wool, you will call for the blessing to return back to the very sheep's back from whence the wool came, and then to the heart of the earth. In so doing, beloved ones, a mighty stream of love will permeate the channels and marts of commerce, for from your hearts there will be flowing back through the channels of industry those subtle vibrations now qualified by divine love, which mankind in their ignorance have qualified with human discord. This then is a transmutative effort on behalf of the wise and perceptive Chelas, which will cause the marts of commerce, now clogged by the effluvia of human creation, to be cut free from that and receive the manifold blessing of Christ consciousness and divine illumination. Beloved ones, when I journeyed long ago with beloved Moria and Kuthumi to the manger of the Christ and knelt there before him, I took a vow within my heart that I would ever honor the Christ in all life. And therefore tonight I come to you to convey the wisdom of the Christ pertaining to those affairs which are vital to your present surroundings and your daily living. In the pioneer days, when the looms of America were flashing to and fro in the parlors, kitchens, and bedrooms of the log huts and farm homes of this rural community, beloved ones, the love of the mothers and the women of those days in their pioneer spirit was woven to a much greater degree into the homespun garments which they wore. With the commercialization of all of these various crafts and skills, weaving, making of shoes, and all of these various articles which you consume and use about your person and in your homes, mankind became more and more resentful of the long hours which they were forced to labor at cheap wages. And before the revolutions took place whereby the labor unions arose, the resentment of the factory workers was sometimes frightful, and the fomented power was radiated forth, making a crass society and creating a condition which did not foster the nurture of spirituality among the people. And so from the beauty of freedom which accompanied the early pilgrims who came over on the Mayflower, and that which accompanied those who worshipped with Elder Brewster and those early pioneer spirits in America, there came a change which swept across the country. With the thirst for gold and the gold fever, mankind flashed into an era of materialism, and much of human discord was spread abroad in this contagious manner which I have illustrated. Now it is ever so wise that the students of Saint Germain, who have understanding within their hearts, of the need to expand purity throughout the earth should understand how that a simple call of gratitude to their own mighty I Am presence, and a simple call to God and the great ones for the release of the violet transmuting flame, and the beloved flame of truth from the heart of Hilarion, they can be able to purify in the light of divine truth all of their world, bit by bit, throughout the day, until every moment is taken up with the spreading of the light of God in this most subtle manner among mankind. And then we have reversed the current of human discord, for the path through which discord has traveled is the human path. And now then, by this divine wisdom flame teaching of spiritual illumination, the students, acting by the power of the great law, will be able to release a tremendous spiritual charge throughout the world, and the activity which I am speaking of will be like the leaven in bread. It will cause a rising and elevating action within all mankind, and as this knowledge is disseminated more and more in practice among the students and outside of this body into those other students of spiritual law throughout the world who will understand the great truth which I am now proclaiming, you can see that a leavening action will occur throughout the world. And then, as in the community of the miller in the far distant land of the dikes, the beauty of the world community will be enhanced by the perceptive Chila, and this will expand the Chilas of the ascended masters throughout the world and help to usher in the golden age. As I stand before you tonight, it is with a sense of great humility, for I recognize that many of you in your present state have poured out an enormous amount of devotion to God. Your calls, beloved ones, in some cases would have set you free long ago had it not been for the weights and oppressions which you have absorbed from others among mankind. Now I do not propose separatism, or that you should anchor yourselves in a monastery or monastic way of life in order to escape this condition. This would not in itself provide you an avenue of escape, dear hearts. But I do advocate that you do understand how that by spirituality and protective devices the students may rise in the cosmic scheme and avoid the dissipation of the great spiritual energies which are released to them by the ascended masters. I call to your attention now that wondrous and transcendent hour when the woman who had spent all that she earned in searching a cure for her illness stood by the side of the beloved ascended Master Jesus and pressed through the crowd that surrounded him to place her fingers upon the very hem of his garment. I remind you now that as she touched the hem of his garment, the mere clothing thereof, that a current of healing power rushed forth through her hands, passed through her body, and removed from her this condition of years of oppression. Beloved ones, the Master turned to his disciples and spake, saying, "Who touched me?" Those in the audience around him said, "How can you say, 'Who touched me?' when all around you are pressing against you?" And he spake unto them, and he said, "Nay, but I perceive that virtue has gone out from me." This, beloved one, should show you that virtue can be conveyed by the power of the hand, by the power of contact, by the power of the spoken word, by the power of radiation. There is then a method whereby spirituality can be conveyed from one hand to another, but it is one thing to convey it and another thing to retain it. You sit in these meetings in our presence and radiation. You feel tumultuous currents of light passing through the atmosphere. Your spirits are exalted with new hope. and all hope in you flourishes. You then say to yourself, I must make a new resolve, that I will never again express conditions of negativism, and then there rushes in the negative charge from the sinister, and you are turned aside for a moment, and one day you find yourself again in that state and condition which you were in previously. Beloved ones, the wise will avoid this. I do not say that in the search for the summit of your own existence you will not climb hills and pass through valleys, that you will not sometimes traverse a plain or cross a desert where you may have a dry spell for a while, when the waters of life and the spiritual currents will seem not to flow. I do not say that you will not encounter what is known as the dark night of the soul. I do not say that you will not have trials or tribulations. You are, after all, individuals seeking to fulfill your own God destiny. You are individuals seeking to drink the cup of immortal life. And as the Christ who stood in the Garden of Gethsemane and kneeling down before his Father declared, Father, if it be thy will, let this cup pass from me, so you too at times may flinch from the cup of life that passes before you. But in the drinking of it, beloved ones, the Spirit of divine initiation exalts you to that position where you too become as we are, exalted, illumined, God-free, and ascended. It is worth it all. And therefore, I say to you tonight, the skeins of the thread of divine illumination are placed before you. You have before you the knowledge of God and his mighty laws. It is up to you then to weave these laws skillfully into the tapestry of your own being until you become a living Christ in action. And then perhaps I shall journey to the manger of you and find there the man-child of God dwelling and abiding within the force field of your heart. Perhaps then I shall come also together with others to bring the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh of divine spiritual experience to your feet. For, beloved ones, the All-Father of us all, in his great compassionate love, has destined that every man and every woman shall eventually escape from this round and find such tranquility in the heart of their presence that they shall desire no more to go out into the experiences of externalization. And yet some among them may do as my brothers have done. They may choose to follow the ideals of the Bodhisattva. They may desire to say, O God, until every man-child in this evolution and every man and woman is free, I shall remain bound to the atmosphere of this planet in service to the light, for I will seek that which is lost. The sheep which are lost I will pursue, and I will gather them gently in my arms, and I will return them to the heart of the Father. Beloved ones, the history of mankind is a devious history. Woven through the pages of mankind's history are events both wretched and glorious. But it is in the events of glory that mankind must place their attention and derive their happiness. Men must avoid the pitfalls of those historical events which have proven to them through the years that human discord and materialism are not the way toward happiness. The reveling that took place in Atlantis long ago, when Atlantis was preparing to fall, and I say this because the mankind were sleeping upon Atlantis, their consciousness was turned outwardly toward the outer world conditions, and they did not any longer turn toward their great divine source. Therefore, beloved ones, the conditions there upon Atlantis were frightful to behold, and in their revelings they ignored the presence of Almighty God. Well, the history of what occurred is known to you, for the deluge swept them all away. And many of them, because of the great karmic laws involved, did not even find permission from the karmic board to re-embody until the hour when the Christ himself rose from the dead. And on that hour, many of those spirits which had been kept in prison and bondage from the time of the sinking of Atlantis until that hour were set free and permitted to enter the temples of birth and once again come upon the world scene. It does pay, beloved ones, to seek divine grace. To seek the favor of the Holy Spirit is a glorious experience which those who seek materialism are but denying themselves. I trust, therefore, that you will recognize that from the fountainhead of wisdom, which I am, I have a great deal more to convey than your ears or your consciousness could this night absorb. Were you a sponge with twice the capacity, you could not absorb an iota of that which we could give. And yet I say this not boastfully, but humbly, for it is this contact with the infinite wisdom of God which has enabled me tonight to bring to you these pieces of instruction which may make of the world community a better place to live. In my expressions to others, such as Alice Bailey, and other people through whom I released various facets of the teaching, I have not always found that all that was taught and written down and transcribed was a full reflection of that which I conveyed at inner levels. And therefore mankind, in printing these transcriptions and in recording these matters, frequently did not record them as they ought to be, and therefore some error and some distortion has entered into some of these transmittals. I hope that you will recognize this is the reason why we prefer to dictate these messages in this manner, so that you may have the direct radiation of our love, as it is given to you, spoken to you directly from our heart, and flooded with our compassionate understanding. Nevertheless, we have utilized many channels in the past, and much that has been conveyed has been true. However, I frequently find today that many of the disciples of some of these schools have perverted the teachings into a mere intellectualism and a sham of the real thing, which is the true love of God for all mankind, and not merely a steadying of words in itself. Beloved ones, it is necessary for individuals to seek in the basic simplicity of divine ideas, such as I have conveyed concerning the miller and his wife, the simple ideas that can be transmitted without distortion to mankind. Mankind can understand what love can do, for they have beheld in their own communities the action of divine love in their neighbors. There are few here who could not recite countless examples that you have seen in your own immediate surroundings of the power of divine love expressing through your friends and loved ones. Precious ones of the light, mankind must return to the simple childlike faith in God. They must return to the basic truth which is conveyed by the ascended masters, and then mankind will know freedom. Freedom does not come from warring over the use of words or problems in semantics. It does not come from confusions. Freedom comes from the heart, and the heart is very close to each of you. Ladies and gentlemen, you have today been blessed by Saint Germain. You have today been blessed by K17, and I am blessing you now in the gentle radiation of my flame of holy illumination. I trust that in sweet and holy prayer this night, ere you pass into sleep, you will call for the anchoring in your world of all of the beauty and holiness which has been released to you, and that your hearts, with grateful gratitude to God, and I have used it twice deliberately, will expand limitlessly into those higher octaves and spheres, until on the returning current of divine gratitude you shall find yourselves on the morrow propelled toward your goal, your own God freedom forevermore. Ladies and gentlemen, gentle chelas of the ascended Master, I thank you for your time, for your attention to the light, and for the grace that surrounds your heart. I have spoken to you in the name of holy wisdom, and I know that the divine Theosophia shall herself bless you with a cognition of the infinite, eternal, supernal radiance of your own divine self. I thank you and bid you good evening. My dear friends of freedom, may I enfold you in the flame of my heart this day. Many of you have walked with me along the way that proceeds to immortal perfection for many a year, and the splendor of your shining gladdens my heart and my eyes, for I perceive with inner vision that the brightness of the flame of life within you is increased from day to day, and your devotion is wondrous to behold. I am come this day, then, stirred with old memories of dedication to the cause of freedom, which has pursued me down the centuries unto the present hour. I urge that each of you recognize the purpose for which this convention was convened. The purpose, then, of not only pursuing liberty for yourselves, but for your posterity and for those who now grace this sweet earth upon which you abide. The hour of the present is always a chalice, wondrous opportunity, and as you fill that chalice with the elixir of happiness and dedication, you are serving the holy cause to which I gave all that I have been given by God, and invoked more continuously that I might give more. This then is a service which you also can do, for some of you occasionally have set up laws of limitation in connection with your own world, where you said to yourselves, I do not have the strength to pursue a more rigorous course. But, beloved ones, I do not advocate folly or foolishness, or that you should extend yourselves beyond your capacity, but I do advocate that you should extend your capacity beyond yourselves. I hope that you recognize that which I am trying to convey to you today. For the cup of freedom for the earth comes from the heart of God. The cup of freedom from God's heart is given to each of you as a cup of cold water to a thirsty traveler. And those of you who are wise will not reject it, because it is given in the name of Christ, and it is intended to be an elixir of life that shall give you a compassionate feeling toward all life, so that you may invoke mighty streamers and ribbons of light from the heart of your own presence, that shall enable you to overcome the stones of stumbling which men have laid in your pathway, inadvertently or by design. For there are many crafty men and women today in the world who do not have the understanding which you have, and in their blindness and ignorance they would hinder you from expressing the freedom of life. That which they do is truly impersonal, for they know not what they do. And in the fiat of the Christ which he uttered, Father, forgive them, they know not what they do, you will find your own freedom, that you will not personalize that energy which is directed at you and be sidetracked into the byways of immortal life. I hope that you understand exactly what I am trying to convey. Beloved ones, you are on the pathway toward immortal life, and if you become sidetracked by individuals who throw arrows at you, and your attention goes to them, you are not using your energy for the chalice purposes for which God intends you to use it. And this then bypasses for you the ascension, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days, sometimes for years, and sometimes even for embodiments. The embroilment of mankind in the eternal conflicts of human creation has kept men and women from their own victory and freedom. The purposes of convening these classes and releasing this instruction is to give mankind their freedom. If they are to have it and to hold it and to cherish it and to extend it to others, they must then exercise the prerogatives that heaven has given unto them, and they must exercise those prerogatives wisely and well. I say to you today then, in the name of God, regard for a moment all the priceless heritage that has been handed down to you. The torch of freedom is passed to you from our own hands. The torch of freedom which the Goddess of Liberty holds is as much yours to hold as it is hers, and she herself will no doubt call this to your attention in one way or another. Peace, beloved ones, strength to you, freedom to you, divinity to you, and every divine gift. May it all descend and be lowered to you from the heart of your own presence. I could speak many words this day, and I am well aware of the fact that many of you come here hungering and thirsting after my words. But then, beloved ones, I think you are aware of the fact that a great deal of this is given in radiation as well as in worded instruction, and therefore if I myself today, in the interest of brevity, do not speak to you intensely, you will understand that I will continue to radiate to you throughout the balance of this class, and so I will make up by radiation that which I do not release in words. And I trust then that you will appreciate that which is being done and will recognize your own opportunities to pass this torch of freedom to others. This activity, in its flourishing, can bring many sons to victory. It can be a means of assuaging human grief beyond your power at present to measure. I call to your attention the great devotion which was externalized in beloved Mother Mary during the embodiment in which she cared for the beloved ascended Master Jesus as that holy child was placed there in her trust. I call to your attention my own service then as Joseph. I call to your attention all the good that has been done to mankind, that which has been showered upon them through that dispensation and release of his great beatitudes that he spoke from the hillsides, of the beatitudes of his heart as he ministered to mankind, of the Christly nature he extended to the world, of the compassion which he poured out in measureless torrents of love. All of this I call to your attention, and I say, go and do thou likewise. In the interest of freedom today, the extension of spiritual endeavors such as this brings to mankind the cosmic honor flame from God's own heart. and so many find release rather than the few. And think you, beloved ones, that as you do this service for mankind, you shall not receive a reward. I tell you, great is your reward in heaven, and great also is your reward even upon earth. Mankind today frequently do not measure their own rewards properly, and they often feel bereft of honor and of fame. Well, let me tell you, beloved ones, that which is pleasing to your own mighty I Am presence is the greatest honor you can ever achieve. For when your own mighty I Am presence confers upon you a diploma of achievement, it is the greatest boon which has ever been given to anyone upon this earth. For this is a conferment from the hands of God Himself. And this is no fable, but is the purest of truth. Those then who desire to have freedom and to find their freedom in this day and age will study to show themselves approved unto their own mighty I Am presence. They will recognize the great dignity and noblesse oblige which mankind can draw forth from their own God presence, which they can extend to one another in courtly manners and graces throughout the days that are afforded to them to live. Be grateful then for life, precious ones. Be grateful for the day's opportunities. Be grateful for the breaking of bread with one another. Be grateful for the great communion of saints, which is extended to you through this method of communication from our octave, whereby you are able to hear from us, to feel and to sense our vibratory action and the release of our divine love as it is poured forth into the chalice of the present hour. I say then, in the name of cosmic freedom, let us make this class a memorable class, an opportunity such as never before has graced this planet. Let us determine that ere this class shall end, they shall feel the action from pole to pole and from east to west, sweeping the world around with such an immaculate concept that all life shall know that something has occurred. Some of you may have noted the blue of the sky and the coolness of the air today in this vicinity. Do you think this happened by chance? The masterful stroke of great and beloved ascended Master Serapis, which he released last night, brought to you the luxuriant consciousness of his divine concepts as he poured out his purity ray together with the light released from the goddess of purity. Beloved ones, in the name of independence and freedom, cease to be fooled by the human. Cease to be fooled by those who would bring forth discord and gossip and destructive activities. We have stood behind the Summit Lighthouse not because of any specific individual in it, but because of the fact that the concept itself is divine, and those who enshrine it, those who are serving the cause at the heart center, have to the best of their ability rendered a cosmic service. It does not mean that they could not do more. It means that they have lived according to their present capacity, and we yearn to see that capacity expanded. Some of you may not realize it, but most of you will if you will let the scales of illusion fall from your eyes, that there was some masterful stroke of divine genius in our service today, which you may think seemed to appear as an ordinary procedure, but I assure you it was more than ordinary by far. In case some of you would like to try it, I urge you to stand upon your feet in rendering a service to mankind for 1 hour, and then find out for yourselves if there was not a masterful stroke of cosmic genius in the release which we gave to you today. Perhaps it did not manifest in all of the absolute perfection which we released it in, but at least it manifested very close to it, and for that we are most grateful to every one of you who participated in it. Beloved ones, this was performed for a purpose, to generate within you a cosmic spirit of brotherhood toward one another, so that from this nucleus there can expand a great fire ring around the world of cosmic initiations. Beloved ones, stop and pause to consider what this means. You are brothers now of the flame and sisters of the flame, welded together through the great cosmic fire rings and by the cosmic fire angels of my band. This is a more than ordinary procedure by far. And you, who, in one sense of the word, are deemed mere mortals by mankind, who behold you walking down the street, and sometimes say to themselves, well, I wonder what that gray head is going to do. Beloved ones, there may be many of you with gray hair in this audience, but I tell you that there is a great fire within your heart, and that is what I am concerned with. And those of you who do not have it, but may acquire it eventually, through some means or other of service to the light, will find that the light that is within you is sufficient for the days that are ahead. And there is no evil outward condition that cannot yield to the light, if you will invoke it in God's name and call it forth and put it to practice and use. I say to you, beloved ones, if you are going to keep the flame, you must recognize in keeping it that you are declaring your independence from human outer conditions forever, and you are then dependent upon your own mighty I Am presence for your life, for your supply, for your abundance, for your wisdom, for your brotherhood, for your compassion, for your grace, and for your ascension. Yes, indeed, even for your ascension, and that especially. If you would drink then of the great cup of liquid light which I offer you today at spiritual levels, you will realize that you can partake of that same communion which beloved Godfrey offered to David Lloyd. And if you partake of it today at spiritual levels, do you think, beloved ones, that the hour will not come when you yourself will find this elixir is penetrating your consciousness and giving you the flame of freedom flowing through your physical form? And you will find that through the power of the flame you are being reborn hour after hour anew, and refreshed and regenerated and actually ascended in consciousness, until by and by the day will come when the great spiritual magnet will be so strong that the attraction that pulls you upward will be so much greater than that which holds you down here that you will quite naturally rise, because there is no longer any gravitational power whatsoever to keep you down here, and you're going to go up, beloved ones. And that is our gift to you today on this your cosmic Independence Day of freedom in the mighty I Am name. I thank you in God's holy name and bless you in the name of the great I Am race, in the name of America, the land of the free, in the name of India, the great and magnificent devoted people of the Far East, and in the name of both East and West, and in the name of brotherhood. Peace then, dear hearts. The hour is coming when you shall have your victory. Fear not. Be of good cheer. It is I, the light of the world, in all that shall expand you until you become as illustrious as God intended the day He saw your shining souls and beings emerge from the great spheres of light in the great central sun. I thank you and bless you with all diplomatic courtesy which I can extend to your precious life streams. You are my children, born of the flame, and I love you each one. God bless you. Won't you please be seated? Thank you, and good afternoon.